Hello and welcome back to TUC0's Talks. My name is Chris Wright, and TUC0's Talks is a leadership podcast where we're going to talk to some military officers, we're going to talk to some enlisted, we're going to talk to coaches, and we're going to ask some really tough questions on leadership and see if we can find some advice on failing forward and really taking care of people. Well, today we have Ramiro Villalobos, V-Speed. He is an old friend of mine. He's over 20 years experience in Air Force Special Warfare. And today he's going to share some lessons learned on his side. He's also going to talk about the TUC Association, which is all about taking care of people in the military and the veterans, especially family members. So that's going to be a great time. It was a lot of fun, a lot of learning. I really hope you enjoy it. But before we get there, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Reminder that all proceeds go to Morae Classical Schools, which is a private classical Christian school for military families, all about alleviating the burdens on a military family. So if you want to do your part, just hit that like, subscribe button. Go check them out at moraeclassicalschools.org and find out. Well, for now, let's get into it. This is TUC0 Wright checking in. Hello and welcome to TUC0's Talks. It is another great day of interviews. I have V here today, a buddy of mine that through the TACP community, and I am excited just to hear what he has to say and see where we are. So V, hey, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I've seen these start kicking off, and it's a pleasure to be on the TUC0 Talks.
Absolutely. Hey, just so people know who you are and where you're coming from, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So my name is Ramiro Villalobos. Currently living in North Carolina, going to Wake Forest. Go Deeks! And graduated from the U.S. military, U.S. Air Force as a TACP, and had an awesome career, pretty exciting career. So currently in the TUC Association, running that as president, currently working as a SEI Professional Development or ProDev Academy as a director there. And man, just getting after things and just trying to conquer life.
Yeah, absolutely. And man, one of these days, I think in transition, they got to actually tell us what retirement means, because I think most of us are so busy after active duty.
Dude, absolutely.
So did you take any time to breathe, or did you jump right in?
Yeah, no, I think I jumped right in. Kind of like my exit from the military, I just kind of saw the writing on the wall and was ready to just go in a different direction. Instead of kind of going into the desk, I was like, well, kind of war in Afghanistan's over. That's closed down and shut down. And I felt like I had done my best to pass on the torch to the younger TACPs in the world and trying to help them out and just kind of stay in this corporation we call the Air Force. I'm going to get into a desk anyways. So why not just go ahead, move into an arena and see if I can lead and really lead out there in the private sector corporate world. And so 1 February was my official 1 year out. So that was pretty awesome. So it's been a great experience. A lot of lessons learned, a lot of different things that hopefully I can kind of share with your audience and just kind of share along the way and maybe give somebody just a little bit more hope, maybe a little sanity check is what I call, because sometimes you feel like you're crazy out there, right?
Yeah, no, 100%.
Well, I think, to that point, for myself, it was the learning part. I've always been a lifelong student of leadership. I've always been a lifelong student, and I enjoy learning. Sometimes against my will, sometimes the hard way too, right?
Yeah.
The school of hard knocks, right? We all learn those things, but I think what I was seeing though was a cultural shift within the corporation, and it was just one of those things where I was trying to. I had a old S3 back when I was working with the 82nd, and he's like, everywhere you go, you need to be running your insurgency. And I'm like, dang, all right, that's actually pretty cool. He's like, yeah, always try to make it better. Always try to help everybody out. Always try to get a band of ragtag, misfits together to kind of make things better and improve things and kind of work on that piece. And I was trying to run that insurgency, if you will, under that definition of trying to make things better, trying to make people just kind of focus. And I think that we always have that one point, right? I don't know what yours was, like that one moment you're like, okay, this is now crossed that threshold. And for myself, it was, I recognized that during this period, it was a period where we could take a knee, refit, and really educate ourselves on our adversary tactics and doctrine. And so that's kind of one of those things from thinking like the wolf. How do we study our adversaries so intimately that we can almost damn near predict what they're going to do? And when I brought that to the table, it was met with it wasn't as received as I thought it was going to be, because it was shifting into more of a garrison style, peacetime style force. And I had a couple of those moments. I'm sure you probably did too. Sitting in the room with the team, and I'm like, "Hey guys, so remember whenever you were getting ready to go on patrol and do your PCIs and everything?" Like I was kind of breaking that down for them. I forgot. I think that was the context I was talking. They like looked at me like, "Hey, sir,
I don't know what you're talking about."
Yeah, and I'm like, "I'm the old combat guy." Okay, all right. Well, that's the realization. And or the best one was I remember hearing it from some of the other senior NCOs and the senior leaders of like, wait till that moment when somebody was born the day you joined the military is now one of your airmen. And I'm like, I had a couple of those things too. I thought it was super cool. I thought it was one of those like, thank you for your service. Thank you for serving. What can I do to pass this torch on to make you incredibly efficient, incredibly lethal, and just effective at what you do? And so that was kind of what I tried to do the last little bit. And the nickname V Speed. Initially, I got that when I was at the 14th there in Bragg, or now Liberty, and I thought the guys were trolling me, and maybe they were, but no, they're like, actually, it's a good thing because you've got high speed, and then you got V Speed.
Yep.
And so I've always, hopefully, the career field in the community knows it's always about like, all right, if we're going to do something, let's do it. Let's make it happen. Let's do it the right way. If we're going to, I think some of the teammates, they would not grumble, but they would just like, oh, V's leading this TDY. Okay, we know we're going to work. We know we're going to get after it, and like kind of fun jazz. So hopefully, I was trying to make an impression. But yeah,
absolutely. I remember I think all of you guys were in B flight there, Bravo flight, and it was just moving through. You always had everything locked in and ready to go. And V, I always called you V, and then I remember the V Speed, and it's just, I think that's cool because it denotes something different about you. I think of you, I think of Dean. He was the same type, just that wealth of knowledge, had the Ranger experience, and was just going. And of course I had Foster on here earlier, and that guy, ball of energy.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Man, I do miss that. Okay, before we go into that though, let me ask you a question. So we're talking about leaders. Think about the leader that you have always wanted to emulate. Whoever that is, and we don't need names, just think of the characteristics. Who was that person? Again, you don't have to tell a name, but who was that person, and why did you want to emulate them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I've been kind of, so I'll answer your question with a brief summary of my life. So when I was in elementary school, kindergarten, actually, I still have the report card somewhere. It's probably in household goods. One of my report cards says Ramiro gets along well with others, but he likes to be in charge. So I have always been high school, middle school. I've always been a student of leadership, and I actually got that from Vinny Ventrella, who's a retired combat controller. But you use that term student of leadership, and really that's what it is, right? It's this lifelong pursuit of, all right, how did I get better? How do I get better just a little bit more? So, to narrow it down just to one person, to one event, one moment, really just one person is tough for me, because I am always trying to like, all right, start applying things, learning things, taking things in, not criticizing, but more of going, I probably would have done things a little bit differently this way. I probably would approach things differently that way. It's really, and I've always tried to be an active leader in my home, in my life, in myself. And I think when we start going down the path of finding that one person to emulate, golly, you're something, never meet your heroes, right? Because if you ever meet your
Right.
heroes, then you're going to be kind of sadly let down. Yeah, I take a lot of lessons, and a lot of things I try to learn is how Christ led. By no means am I there, and no means will I ever get there, right? But from that level of just, try to be honest, try to take care of people, try to understand your adversaries, try to lead your home, and it's, try to really apply those tenets and those different things of what a leader is. There's a lot of, leadership nowadays, especially in the civilian world and everything. Leadership. It's all plastered everywhere, and even One's Ready, I think, just had a discussion on that too. It's always been just how do I refine? How do I grow? How do I get better? Mark Foster was my supervisor, solid leader. Tommy Case was my supervisor, solid leader. So Rob Compton, director of education, he was there at NCO Academy. We had completely polarized different approaches to leadership. Learned so much from, and a great leader in that sense too. Tom Stiles. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And people that I just take those nuggets and, okay, hey, I really like that. And I think that's one of the things I've always been, is coachable. I've been willing to be coachable. I'm willing to learn, but I'm also willing to own my decisions, own, that reins. It was kind of funny in my earlier years when it came to like leadership and different things like that. It was, I'd have some critics say, "Oh, you always want to be in charge, as your way or the highway," or all other kind of jargon. And I think they were, looking back on reflective, I think they were more so looking at me from the lens of me trying to maybe dominate, maybe like take things on and do too much, that kind of stuff. But I think it was more so, it's just a misunderstanding in a vacuum. If nobody's going to lead, I'll step in, I'll help out. There's been so many times, Chris, like I didn't even want to be in charge of anything. I'm like, nope, I'm not in charge of this. Just this last week, we were going to a community group here in North Carolina, and I told my wife on the way there, I'm like, babe, I'm not taking on another thing to be in charge of. Like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to be in charge of. And then I walk into the ring.
Can't help yourself.
Yeah,
Can't help yourself. No, that's fantastic. And, I have the privilege of coaching lacrosse, high school lacrosse right now, and I'm working with the JV team, but I'm a director of leadership for the team, where I'll sit down with captains and just sort of pour into them. And we were talking about the infantry slogan of "Follow Me," talking about the Rangers and the diamond on the back of the helmet in World War II, and all of those things. But ultimately, it came down to Paul saying, "Follow me, emulate me as I emulate Christ."
There you go, man.
You said that, I was like, yeah, like we all have a image of perfection, because we're all so flawed. That's not one person, unless you're talking about God, but and you're taking those nuggets of those people that are saying, hey, I can emulate this part of them, I can emulate this part of them, and all those things, and I think that's fantastic. So here's the setup question from all of that.
Yeah.
Yep. This is a return.
Okay. Right on. All right.
Take those principles that you've been using. How does that translate from the military to the civilian side? Are they the same characteristics, or do you have to change?
Yeah, great question. Do you remember the MyVector program the Air Force did?
Yes.
It was like the dating app for coaches and mentors, right? It was kind of like, all right, yeah. So it's totally a dating app, absolutely, right? So I had just got the whole non-vol DSD, right? I was there in Fayetteville, North Carolina at the ASOC, because I had just gotten told, hey, you're going to go there for a breadth of experience, and I'm like, do I get to jump still? No. All right, that sucks. Okay, well, do I still get to control aircraft? No, you don't get to do that either. And I'm like, guys, you're killing me here. Like, what am I going to do? But I got this I literally got this email. Congrats on your assignment as a PME instructor to Area NCOA and Tyndall Air Force Base. And I thought I was getting punked. Actually, Mark Foster was up at the Pentagon, and I thought he was playing a practical joke on me, because I'm like, we don't do this crap. Like, no, not at all. Well, after finding out some details, it was either that or thank you for your service, get out at 15 years. I said, well, I looked at my wife. I said, well, sweetheart, I think we're going to Florida. And of all places, wasn't the worst place to go. So I get down there, and, I had to talk about a challenge of identity, talk about a challenge of when I graduated, the PME instructor, now they've changed all this, but when I graduated the schoolhouse, they're like, great, congratulations, you're a PME instructor now. Lose the beret, lose the boots. And I'm like, what? Like, do I lose the medals too? Because I got the medals too. I'm in blues. And I'm like, I got to just pull these off too. Like, if you want to sit here and pick and choose what we're going to do. So understanding that at the time, Battlefield Airmen and PME had the whole bad rap. I was like, all right, well, I'm kind of a delegate or ambassador for the Battlefield Airmen thing. I'm not going to go down there and, I'm going to prove them wrong. I'm going to prove them that we are, which I already know we all are, but I'm going to prove them that we are incredibly smart. We're confrontational because, well, that's what we do, but confrontation only warrants itself whenever it's needed. And PME, it's needed. And that's a whole nother topic that we can get into. But as I'm sitting down there, I'm like, okay, I need an adversary, a mentor, somebody to help me out. And the My Vector program, I reached out to and I said, okay, what do I want to kind of speak into me and that kind of stuff? So I put a master's degree, graduate's degree, enlisted or officer. I put, I wanted them to have from the AFSC of like PJs, TACPs, CCTs, the not special warfare at the time, it was Battlefield Airmen. And so out popped this chief working at the Pentagon. And the first thing he asked me was, what is your mission statement in life?
Oh, I love it.
I'm like, he's like, yeah, everywhere you go, there's a mission statement. Your unit probably has a mission statement there, right? I'm like, damn, okay. I didn't have that. He's like, okay, well then what's your vision statement? And I'm like, to be a good husband and airman. He's like, yeah, that's bullshit. He's like, this is what we're going to do. You got 30 days. No, so I mean, I worked on that. So I worked on that, my own personal vision statement of who I was and my own personal mission statement of who I was. And golly, you talk about when your identity is stripped, when your identity is taken away and you have to walk around, you still have to lead and you still have to like try to get, make an impact, make a positive impact on people's lives. Having that mission statement and vision statement set me up to answer this question. Leading in the military and in the civilian sector and private sector, I would say leading in the military in of itself, there are different versions of leadership. Not going down the path of management versus leader. We can all go to that. This isn't a PME course. More so in a sense, I think that General Goldfein, who wanted to have a lot of operations come into the PME world, that was the whole initiative. That was this whole thing. Like, hey, we've got a lot of support. We got a lot of other people. We need to bring operators into this PME world. I was it. I got tapped on the shoulder for that, I guess. There's a lot of romanticism about what we bring. And I recognized and saw that in the PME world, specifically as ended up becoming a cubic zirconia first sergeant. I wasn't a full diamond, but I was the cubic zirconia of the schoolhouse. And then ended up going working myself out of a job and then got into the senior NCO academy. And so TUCO, with that, like the understanding yourself is going to greatly impact and help that transition as you go through from the private sector into the military side of the house to the private sector. But even within the military sector, if you're in that arena, the one thing that I would say I had a lot of conclusions from PME. It helped me out in so many incredible ways, more than, just saying cleared hot and, dropping bombs, that kind of stuff. What it helped me out was and recognize that the Air Force at the time, I've been out, so I don't know now, but at the time, the Air Force romanticizes about the style of leadership that Air Force Special Warfare brings to the table. You look at all the recruiting videos. You got some recruiting videos, pictures and stuff. And it's very confrontational. It's very like in your face, direct, honest, straightforward, and communicating. However, when you're in that world of professional military education, it's not. I literally was sitting in a conversation on diversity and was told that I was just different. I didn't understand because I was, I'm not part of that group. And I'm like, you understand like the irony of your statement here, right? And it was with the Navy master or Navy chief, Air Force senior NCO, senior master sergeant, and myself. And we're having this kind of like talking about the curriculum and talking about the topic. And I think there's a couple of instructors there, but they're like, yeah, but you're just different. You're just different. I'm like, I'm here to be different. I'm not here to conform. I'm here to bring a perspective to the table. That's why we had, Navy and we had Canadian instructors and different things along those lines. but I'm also not one that's going to back down. And maybe sometimes to my own detriment. I'm not one that's just going to be weak. I'm not going to cave on my principles. I'm not going to break down and back down. But what I will do is understand the arena that I'm in. So as I've transitioned and gone from that short lesson of military style leadership, it's not the same in the military. Like, not every veteran's created equally either. And that's just an honest truth, right? We all get that 10% discount, but not everybody's created equally. But on the flip side of that, as I've transitioned out of the military, a lot of the principles are still there. And in fact, we excel in a lot of areas of actually just taking care of people. Like, there's a whole concept called emotional intelligence. You know what that's called? That's called getting to know your troops, getting to know the people you're working around. It's called intrusive leadership. It's called understanding that people are different. They have different backgrounds. They may have some things going on in their home life, personal life, that may very well impact the mission, the goals, the things that we're getting after. Additionally, adjusting your approach to problem solving, you have to be a little bit kinder. You have to be a little bit more gentle when you're calling somebody and you're calling somebody's baby ugly. You can just say, hey, your baby's not attractive versus your baby's ugly. So, or your baby needs to improve in some areas here and there. I literally gave feedback to one of my colleagues. And the feedback, TUC0 was very, it was professional. It was one of those things where I had initially started this project, and he had management had kind of just put him in charge of it without really kind of talking with me. I'm like, okay, roger that. But he comes in super motivated, super like a Mustang, right? Just wild horse, getting after, tell me you're going to do this. And he was good. He was just super motivated. He was more of like, hey, I need you to do this. I'm going to do this. And I'm like, hey, I thought I was leading this project, but okay, this is news to me. And so at the end of our meeting, I said, hey, man, can I give you some feedback? I'm like, you pissed me off back there. You pissed me off. However, I would much rather you be motivated and want to get things done and have a wild Mustang than be a dead horse. And so,
Facts.
Right. And so it almost was like that. I put my senior NCO hat on and just kind of like try to mentor this young lieutenant, this young captain, try to speak some life into him. And, I think it was received. I think it was definitely received, but there was a little bit of a awkwardness after that, a little bit of a shift after that in approach. And, we were good. I think that was one of probably the best things that I think we have from like a resilient aspect of it is we could literally get done with a mission or get done at work or a day. Like, hey, Chris, can I talk to you for a minute? Especially whenever I started kind of getting that op suit kind of role, go in your office, say, hey man, we need to have a conversation. Yep. This is TUC0 V-Speed talking here. This isn't, let's take the rank off and let's have this conversation and duke it out. But then when we walk out the door, I'm going to be your biggest ally. So, so that transition. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably when you can get to that spot in a military organization where you can come in and close the door and just, hey, this is stupid. We've got to get to this point. One, it takes an officer who can let that rank go, like knock that off and understand you're not the expert.
Yeah.
And as a leader, rarely are you the expert at anything. You are leading people who are experts. But it takes someone with a whole lot of confidence and a whole lot of emotional intelligence to read the room to be able to have that conversation. So you said, all right, I'm gonna interrupt you because you just like 10 great points.
ChatGPT.
First one.
Throw this transcript in there. Get the clip.
Yeah, exactly.
That's for viewers.
We're going to be able to knock these out. It's going to be awesome. But when you talked about diversity, here is my thought, and I'm not one that gets up and talks about DEI or anything else like that. But when you're going into PME, professional military education, and you have 30 to 40 different AFSCs or specialty codes or people with different jobs. And one's a fireman, one's a contractor, one's intelligence, one's flying, one's groundwork. So that's diversity because it's diversity of thought and you are groomed in a certain way of thinking and talking. And the military is one of the most diverse organizations out there because we're so ingrained with the way we think. And if we can stop, and if we can talk, and if we can learn from each other, which we do very well, especially when you're talking about Air Force Special Warfare, and even within the Joint Special Operations community, things get easy because you
100%.
you start learning when you're like, oh, I had to go to the ASOC, and Big Air Force is like, we need to give you more breadth so you'll understand that side. The military does a very good job of punching you in the face 30 to 40 times just so you can learn. One would have done good, but
I would just give me a good PowerPoint. Just sit me down, just talk to me. You don't have to punch me in the face.
Yes,
I'm coachable.
So many times. But those are the things, and I just think the key to the question, or the key to the answer that you stated, was you really have to know yourself. It's not really the tactics that are going to change whether you're in the military or the civilian. It's, do you know yourself, and do you know how to what I call read the room?
Sure.
And be able to lead in the way you lead. And that emotional intelligence is going to really come through for you when you transition to the civilian world, because people are so dang different.
They are.
Not only perspective wise, but there are even less people with V-speed out there on the civilian side. Let me shift. You talked about the TACP Association. You're the president right now. So
absolutely,
in the first quarter of this year, I really wanted to focus in on mental health. Just a lot of things going on with people when they transition out. The podcast from a couple weeks ago for me, talking about my story of transitioning out and the problems that I had. I'm assuming the TACP world has had issues. I know that we've lost a couple people, and one of the guys recently, that was hard on me. But where do you see the veterans and getting out, and how are we helping our guys, and for the veterans who are listening, how can they get involved in the TACP Association, and what can they do to help?
Yeah. So how to unpack this, because there's a lot there, right? I would say the Air Force Special Warfare TAP program that we started, it started off as a Facebook page. A couple of chiefs got out, kind of created this Facebook page, kind of get things going on. I ended up kind of falling into it, started creating things, started doing stuff, built the website. So afswtap.org. I started off as tacptap.org, and then there's a gathering of Air Force Special Warfare. All the associations and foundations gather once a year. Now, actually, it's starting to get a little bit more stream, and it's going to be gathering more than that. But I told them when they were in the meeting, I was like, look, I will rebrand this. We've got a class. I just got done with a class. I think we had 60 or 80 students the first class. And I'm like, I just got done with a class on Friday. I'm like, I will rebrand this already. I was already planning on doing it. I wasn't really asking for permission. I was letting them know. But I'm like, we're going to basically be Air Force Special Warfare tap.com or .org. And we're going to cover all of Air Force Special Warfare, because we should look out for each other and get connected with each other.
Yeah.
So how is the TACP Association helping out? For one, the TACP Association, we are being more deliberate with what we're doing. We are being a little bit more capturing the messaging and branding of what we're doing to share with other people. Resilience trips, we paid for a resilience trips and hosted a resilience trip down with Savannah. I think that was really the first official capacity of what they're doing. The foundation's looking to do other things for mental health and mental resilience. We have also provided grants to help individuals seek other methods of other support, other methods like that. So when we're talking about resilience, we're talking about transition. Where my head's at and where I want to go and where I want to take the program, the next phase is I want to create an operator program. I've already reached out to the NFL. They have something called the player engagement. We're going to have operator engagement. Our transition shouldn't be starting 18 months out. Our transition should be starting 6 months out, a year out. Our transition should be starting when we graduate and we have our primary, like we were hired to be a TAC-P. So that means I'm doing all the duties that I'm required to be doing at that moment. I've done my training, my certifications, my evals. Now, hominis dominus, I'm an actual TAC-P, JTAC. I can go out and do my job. Right. That moment, whatever that is for somebody's personal career, that moment should be, okay, cool. How am I planning my exit strategy? What am I doing to try to focus on this piece? And that's going to require a lot. It's going to require a shift in culture for number one. So we should be like, okay, sweet. Awesome. TUC0, you're getting out. What are you doing? What can we help you out with? And so when I look at the operator engagement program and starting it set up, studying other companies, organizations, that kind of stuff. I look at the Navy SEAL Foundation. Incredibly successful.
They're good.
Incredibly successful. And we're trying to get our ducks in a row now, and then we're going to be reaching out to them to get plugged in with them on how to do that piece. But for how they approach things, how great would it be, TUC0, if you were getting out of the military and you said, hey, TAC-P Association, I want to start my own business. I want to do this. And could you guys help me out? And I can say, this is what we're going to do. We're going to give you a grant to make sure you're taking care of your family and everybody else. We're going to get your business up and started. By the way, you will connect with these people who are already successful and kick butt taking names. We're going to get you connected with them as well. And they're going to speak into you, coach you, make sure you got all your stuff set up for your company and everything else like that. All we're going to ask for is 10% donation. Like, let's support them. We should be celebrating that. Yeah. So I think really transition should be beginning. We're all, and you got to approach it at two groups, people groups, target groups, market audiences, right? Your first market audience is going to be the individuals that at that 3 to 5 year mark from getting out, that's like either going to retire or they're already kind of like, our age, let's put it that way, our demographic, right? Like help them out, trying to help them make decisions, start finding their identity, figuring out who they are outside the uniform, all that kind of stuff. Start speaking life into them and helping them out now. And then the other demographic or the other target audience, market audience, would be to speak to the younger individuals. They call it the rookie program in the NFL, all the rookies that are showing up. Start speaking to these rookies and saying, hey, young buck, you just got that bonus. What are you going to do with that? And so there are some incredible Air Force Special Warfare Airmen that have graduated from the Air Force and are out there doing amazing stuff. Like Ashton, he's a PJ. Yeah, I mean, you see him on LinkedIn all the time. He is kicking life's butt and taking names and not working hard at all for this. We're hitting the problem at the source and speaking life into these young airmen and helping them out as they transition and do that piece. Biggest challenge, TUC0, is just resources. I mean, like anything, we're an all volunteer organization, and it just takes time. We're here to help, but on the flip side of that piece too, where our budget's not that great. Like it's just not that great. But we're trying to get it better, and that goes into also telling our donors, hey, this money is going to support and help this out. So, case in point, I want to shout out to the 17th individuals. They raised $1,300 on their own. Didn't ask for it. Didn't solicit. I just literally got a text message saying, hey, this is what we're doing. And how do I get the money to you? And I'm like, this is incredible. Like I think I even did a LinkedIn post about just the proactiveness that these airmen did. It took it upon themselves to go and do this. And so we earmarked that money to partner with the Combat Control Foundation on a resilience event where basically for pre-deployment individuals, the Combat Control Foundation and Dre and the stuff that they're doing there is absolutely incredible. They were already taking care of TAC-Ps, PJs, CCTs, of course, Gray Berets. They've already been taking care of them. And they basically reached out saying, hey, we're doing this. Would you mind? You don't have to help out. You don't have to give us money. We're just letting you know that we're looking out for some of your TAC-Ps too. And I was like, holy crap, that's incredible. Guess what? We're going to take this money that was raised and this money is going directly to support the resilience event for pre-deployment. And who knows, maybe help a family out, maybe help a marriage out, maybe help out some issues from that resilience aspect. Cause unfortunately I've lived a lot through that stuff too. And it is never easy. It is never easy. It's to be downrange and to be going through different things like that and kind of compartmentalize and come home. So deliberateness. I think the key points is deliberateness. We are definitely deliberately supporting things. We're funding other projects to support other means that veterans can get through vets. And then we are also just looking out and reaching out. We just plugged in with the chaplain, and he is going to be helping out and assisting with our resilience program and kind of really facilitating that and really being deliberate with it. So a lot of it's process, a lot of it's empowerment. And hopefully my team sees some of the changes that we're doing. And if they see this video, they're going to be like, yeah, I see it now. I understand a little bit about it. But it's being more surgical. It's being more deliberate. It's being more business-like. And because a nonprofit is a business.
Yeah. So when you're talking about, needing capital, and all these people starting, so, I'm right in the middle of Morae Classical Schools popping off. And so that is a ton of capital that we're trying to fundraise. I'm talking to Ellie, and he's talking about Surf Brigade, the things that they're trying to do there.
Yeah, I meant to say that. Absolutely. It's awesome.
Yeah. And so all these people that are getting out, the veterans who we all want to give back to other veterans, and we want to make the life easy because we remember how hard it was or is at the time. And so to have people getting out that could talk to us, man, that is an incredible resource, and I hope that moves forward. I think it would be good to give them just an edge on capital, but also just an edge on don't make the same mistakes I made.
Oh my gosh.
And let me introduce you to people. Like the other day, and I won't mention names because I haven't asked it, but I talked to Colonel Stanger, who is on the show, and I was like, hey, can you introduce me to this person that we had met before? And random call, like completely. And I said, hey, here's what we're doing. And he was like, I can do X. And I was like, oh my goodness. Like, that's crazy. And it's another veteran who can't do everything, but has some things to give. And we all have that heart and that knowledge and that ability, and we can give what we can give. And so it makes life so much better to know you're not in it by yourself. So man,
let me share real quick on that. I gotta share this vision with you real quick. I know we're probably pushing on time, but hopefully this counts for help out your visions or your viewers. So when I was getting out, I had this vision of stepping from a dark room into this expanse of just, best way to describe it to you guys, just bright whiteness, right? Of this big, massive room, super bright, and just a big, big, massive room. Think of like Bruce Almighty or Evan Almighty. I think that was the first one, right? When this just big, massive, all this opportunity and possibility. And so getting out of the military is not the end of something. It is the stepping into the possibility. 99% of the American people are doing it every day. And so I look at it from the perspective of, we have USAA today because USA Today is because of veterans that after World War II, they got together and said, hey, let's go do something great. And it's actually there in San Antonio. You can kind of see it in one of the hotels where they first met. But we're GWAT veterans, brother. So I see us being able to lock arms and be able to do exactly to what you described, help each other out and go that route. And I think that's going to be such a great thing.
That's great. Future podcast coming up. We're going to talk Surf Brigade and get into details on that. So that'll be awesome. Great.
Kevin was another one that kind of spoke life into me in my transition.
Gosh, man, he's so good.
Yeah, he is.
Dang. Like, he was one of those ones that would just come in my office and be like, dang it, TUC0, no. Like, come on.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, let's go. And so I have a who's who when you look at my ops soups. Like, it's been the greatest people. And so people laugh. And, we've got Gav, we got Ellie, we got you, we got Adam Benson. It just keeps going and going and going. I know that you're working your MBA, but let me get to the point where I'm passing it back to you. Like, we've got these young leaders, we've got the young NCOs, young lieutenants that are listening to this podcast saying, man, I just want to learn something. What do you have for those guys?
Yeah. Be coachable, I think, is number one. If I was to talk to the young cats, young individuals, be coachable. You don't have to be agreeable. You don't have to be, just adopt everything that I say, but just be coachable to try it out. Be open to it. Be receptive. Additionally, that's a lot to unpack in that sense, to share with them. Lead with tenacity. Be dangerous.
Yeah,
that is probably, like, I think that is one thing. I wouldn't say it got me in trouble per se, but I was never going to be the one that was going to be the yes man in the room. I just not my style. I may bite my tongue and try to understand what my senior leaders are doing, which the enlisted force structure talks about that. I would ask questions, a shit ton of questions, to try to understand what's actually going on. And if it still, at the end of the day, didn't make sense, I would make solid recommendations and advisements on I don't recommend this to be an idea. Like, here's my recommendation, or I advise against this. And I think that comes a lot from the JTAC side of the house. I had a squadron commanding officer with a cavalry coming to the talk, and I think he had just had a really bad meeting, and he saw somebody on the screen we were watching. He's like, I want that guy dead. And I'm like, okay, I hear you. I don't want to go to jail, and I don't want you to go to jail. So we'll watch him. If he does something bad and something's ROE, we'll kill him. However, I'm not going to jail, and I don't want you to go. He looked at me in such a puzzled way of like, this airman just told me no, and I'm a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army. Like, so, but lead with tenacity. Understand your mission statement. Get your own personal. That would be it. Get your own personal mission statement. Get your own personal vision statement. Put some thought into it, and then lead with tenacity. Having that personal mission statement, having that personal vision statement has always been the azimuth whenever I got off track, or whenever I got kind of in that area that was super dark, and I just busted out the compass, understood where I was going and what I was doing, and who I am. And again, it's just it's kind of getting after it. So that way.
Yeah, that's so good. I love coaching, football, lacrosse, whatever it is, but I tell my guys all the time, I'm like, hey, I don't care if you make a mistake, but make it full speed, 100%. Yeah. And if you mess up, let it be a disaster. Like, you're all in. And I love the tenacity, and don't be the yes man. Preach it, tell the truth. And Dr. Peterson, just that, be a monster. Like, go get it.
Be dangerous.
Be dangerous. I love that in the context of knowledge is power. Knowledge is dangerous. Your ability to understand concepts and to articulate them in a way to change people's minds, that's dangerous.
Absolutely.
And so we transfer from the military, where we are literally pulling triggers, to now we're doing it with our minds and trying to articulate and shape events and shape realities and working through that.
Well, I would say our military experience, when you're on the X and you're controlling, you're taking a very chaotic and stressful situation and you're articulating it through the radio that everybody can clearly and plainly understand. Yes. I don't think our airmen understand that is such a superpower in the private industry world, that they need that. I think that was one of the coolest compliments I got whenever I was doing my internship, was like, Ramiro, you do a really good job of taking like super crazy complex things and just making them simple where everybody can understand. And I was like, that is a huge compliment. Thank you. Because I didn't tell, I was like, that's what I did for a living for, in my career in the military, taking crazy complex situations and doing that. But that's, those soft skill sets translate into the private sector, and we do it. We just got to understand it.
Yes. And selfishly, for Morae Classical, just your ability to teach. I love the military side, because we are invested in character and virtues, and it's such a big part of what we did. And, to your point in the story, as I don't want you to go to jail, but we were taught to say no when people stepped outside of the character that we expected people to have and the virtues that we were told to emulate and to hold the standard. And so if you can hold the standard on virtues, and if you can articulate things well, and life is just open to whatever you want to do.
Well, and that's the Pro Dev Academy with the Professional Development Academy that I ended up getting part of with Tony Negron.
Yeah.
He approached me. He has like, hey, I've got this vision. I got this idea. I think you're the guy to take it. I said, well, dude, I'll sign an NDA and let me see everything you got. And then I'll write up a business pitch on how I would do it. And TUC0's, I was going through that. It never dawned on me. Think about this, man. We were taking staff sergeants, myself was included in this, and we're taking them and we were putting them in a combat operation, a combat scenario, and a mission. And the depth of like, and granted, the PME has issues, but it's still, they're still doing a good job. They're trying to do something. But think about that. A staff sergeant only had an airman leadership school. And he was interacting with captains, majors, command sergeant majors. And that gap of professional development, of understanding team dynamics and understanding like how to negotiate and how to get plugged in, it blew my mind. I was like, how did we even do that? Like, I mean, we figured it out. And a lot of times it was, you don't let that sergeant major push you around. Don't be a little bitch. Like, you tell him no, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. And so some people would do that and it didn't really work out well. And then you know, you'd probably get a phone call like, hey, you know, V's doing this and wearing black and tans down and pissing everybody off, that kind of stuff. Just cussed out sergeant major, you know, but we were almost setting our special warfare airmen up for failure, because there is such the level of responsibility, the level of interaction, the level of all that thing. Like, I was working with sergeant majors and lieutenant colonels and sometimes colonels, even speaking to sometimes generals as a staff sergeant. And it's like, or even as a tech sergeant too. And I'm like, yeah, there's a gap there that we need to be able to do that. So that's why I ended up jumping in with Pro Dev Academy to try to help out and bring that level of professionalism, that level of like academia that's actually tangible, not feelings based. It's understanding how to work with people, understanding how to execute, and walk away with a tangible like, okay, cool, I went to this, now I can start exploiting and using this in my work center. So trying to make things better for them.
No, those are great. Those are great. All right. Well, I think we've exhausted the time. Man, I cannot thank you enough for jumping on here. There's so much, and we'll chat GPT summary these things. But when we talk about giving back, and I joked at the very beginning of when we get out, we haven't figured out what retirement is, but you said it so clearly and so well is, man, this is the time where we get to get out and get after it. Like all those things that we knew we could be doing while we were in the military, we just couldn't get there. We now have those opportunities. And so TACP Association, Morae, Surf Brigade, the foundations that you're talking about doing, there's so many things that people can be investing in. And we always talk about leadership is about people and giving back to people. The last thing that I'll just say is, man, take the 2 seconds, call people that you haven't talked to in, I think we said, 10 years? Yeah. So be able to work through those. For everybody out there, thank you for being with us today. I hope you learned a ton. I know I have. And until next time, this is TUC0 Wright checking off.